This book is inspired by jokes collected from around the world. The main characters, Jimmy Slick and Allie Nuts, are larger-than-life personas who embody different traits of humanity. Sometimes they're clever, other times foolish, sometimes cunning, and at times naive. Often they swing from one extreme to another, carrying both the flaws and virtues of humankind. If you're someone who wants to unwind after a long day, this book is just for you. Chapter 1: Jimmy Slick's Family.
Colonel Henry Slick, a veteran with a long and storied military career, sat at his desk in the command office. Though he appeared serious, a faint trace of amusement could be read on his face. Through the wide window, he watched Drill Sergeant Johnson assessing the new recruits, a group that was obviously clumsy and disoriented. They were fresh, inexperienced, but full of energy, the perfect combination for all kinds of unexpected moments.
From the training yard came the booming voice of the sergeant.
"Soldiers, who knows what the most dangerous weapon is?"
A short young soldier with a confident expression raised his hand.
"I do, Sergeant."
The sergeant arched an eyebrow, already preparing to hear something unusual.
"Go ahead, soldier. A spoon, Sergeant."
The rest of the recruits burst into laughter, but the sergeant motioned for silence. With a firm voice he asked,
"And why is that, soldier?" "Well, when you lose it, you don't eat for 3 days, and you're half dead."
Colonel Slick, watching the scene from the window, stifled a laugh. It was the kind of remark only a freshly recruited soldier could come up with. After so many years in the army, he still encountered people who managed to surprise him, either through ingenuity or lack thereof. Drill Sergeant Johnson, trying to maintain his authority, continued the assessment.
"Soldier, what do you do when you hear the order, 'Volunteers, 1 step forward'?" "Sergeant, I take a step to the side to make room for the volunteers to step forward."
The sergeant turned his attention to the next recruit, who stood as straight as a post.
"Soldier, what do you do if you see 500 enemies ahead of you?" "I shoot them with the machine gun, Sergeant. And if you see 800 enemies to your left?" "I shoot them with the machine gun, Sergeant. And if you see 1,000 enemies to your right?" "I shoot them with the machine gun, Sergeant." "And where do you get all that ammunition, soldier?" "From the same place you get all those enemies, Sergeant."
Colonel Slick decided it was time to step in. It was clear the sergeant was starting to lose control of the situation. Rising from his desk, he went out to inspect the platoon of recruits. When the sergeant saw him approaching, he shouted at the top of his lungs.
"Attention!"
The entire platoon saluted Colonel Slick. The colonel began the inspection. Everything seemed in order: clean uniforms, polished boots, perfect alignment. However, something caught his eye on the path leading to the command office. A cigarette butt lay on the ground, a symbol of a lack of discipline. The colonel's face turned crimson with anger.
"Whose cigarette butt is this?" he thundered.
One of the soldiers, either braver or simply more panicked, leaned toward the colonel and said in a conciliatory tone,
"It doesn't belong to anyone, Colonel. You can have it."
Grandfather Dr. Psychiatrist Paul Slick.
Dr. Paul Slick, the colonel's father, was an extraordinary man. Intelligent yet with a sense of humor that turned every consultation into a memorable skit. Working in a psychiatric hospital, he encountered unexpected situations every day. One morning, during his rounds, he asked a patient with a very serious air, "Tell me, why do you boast to everyone that you're Napoleon, but to me you say you're Louis XIV?"
The patient looked at him respectfully and answered calmly,
"I can't lie to you, you're my doctor."
Paul chuckled but maintained his professionalism. After a few moments of silence, the patient continued,
"Doctor, let me go home. I've had enough of staying here for 10 years. I've been here for 30 years and I'm not complaining."
Another ordinary day at the psychiatric hospital. At one point, a journalist came to document the conditions at the institution. Curious, he asked the doctor,
"Doctor, how do you check if the patients have recovered?"
Paul took off his glasses and replied,
"Well, we show them a bathtub full of water, a spoon, and a bucket. What do you think they should use to empty it?"
The journalist smiled confidently.
"With the bucket, of course."
Paul stepped closer, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said,
"No, sir, a normal person would pull out the stopper. Michal, prepare a room for the reporter."
In another part of the hospital, Paul was trying to provide therapy to a patient.
"What do you mean, doctor? I have the urges of a madman. Stop that chainsaw for a moment so we can understand each other."
During another session, the psychiatrist told a patient,
"Now you're going through a state of denial."
The patient outraged.
"That's not true."
The doctor smiled, satisfied.
"See?"
Jimmy Slick and Allie Nuts were childhood friends and neighbors. They had grown up together in a quiet neighborhood, and their parents often joked that the two of them thought alike. However, this wasn't always a compliment.
Ali, why do you think they always put us at the same desk?
Simple, Jimmy. The teachers think that if they put us together, maybe we'll make a whole. Hurry up, we don't want to be late.
In sociology class, the teacher was explaining a concept.
We call someone a thief if they take another person's property. Jimmy, you're not paying attention. Yes, I am, sir. Then tell me, what would I be if I took $100 from your pocket? A magician, sir.
In math class, the teacher had a question for Ali.
Ali nuts, which shelf in the library did you put the math books on?
On the horror book shelf.
The teacher then turned to Jimmy.
Jimmy, what do we call people who keep talking to others, even though it's clear the others are no longer interested in the conversation? They're called teachers, ma'am.
In grammar class, the teacher was drilling the students.
I didn't eat, you didn't eat, he didn't eat, we didn't eat, you didn't eat, they didn't eat. Repeat after me, Jimmy, no one ate. Ali nuts, how did you manage to not make any spelling mistakes in your homework this past week?
Mom's out of town.
In physics class, the teacher asked Ali a common question.
Ali nuts, do you know what 3 words students frequently use?
I don't know.
Exactly, those are the words.
In religion class, the teacher asked Jimmy about an event from the Bible.
Jimmy, what did the Jews do after crossing the Red Sea? They stayed to dry off.
The teacher then asked Ali about her nightly prayers.
Ali nuts, what prayer did you say last night before bed?
Dear God, please make London the capital of Denmark, just like I wrote in my test yesterday.
In biology class, the teacher had a question for Jimmy.
Jimmy, have you ever seen a wolf in nature? No, Dad doesn't let us take the TV outside.
Billy Nuts was a dedicated police officer, proud of his career, even though he wasn't among the top 10 smartest in the force. He held on to his job with stubbornness and passion, convinced that determination was worth more than any talent. But what does an ordinary day in the life of a police officer really look like? Let's take a look into Billy's world, where every hour might hide a story or a lesson.
Hey John, why are you so nervous and shaking? What happened? I stayed in the fridge for a while. Why? Well, boss, you told us that police officers need to keep a cool head.
A few officers were discussing what to get a colleague for his birthday.
Maybe a book? We gave him one last year. What's he gonna do with 2?
2 officers crashed their car into a tree.
Man, look at the car, it's wrecked. Yeah, but look on the bright side, what's that? We're going to get promoted by the boss since we're first at the scene of the accident.
At the police station, a woman reported her missing husband.
Inspector, my husband went to the store for bacon yesterday, and he hasn't come back home until today. Why don't you cook something else?
There was a knock on the door.
Who's there? The police. No one's home. Then why's the light on? I'll turn it off.
A criminal escaped from the police station and the boss was furious.
You're all incompetent. How could this happen? I ordered you to guard all exits. We did, boss. But he escaped through the entrance.
A man was arrested for selling people the elixir of immortality. At the station, the officers found out that the man not only deceives people but is also a repeat offender, having been arrested for the same thing in 1612, 1783, 1867, 1939, and 2002. A police crew stopped a car for a routine check.
I smell alcohol. Well, if you'd keep a distance of 2 meters.
At the bookstore, Billy had a peculiar request.
Do you still have the book, What Are Police Officers and What Do They Want? No, it's out of stock. Just give it to me as it is.
Police officer Billy Nuts used to listen to Radio Abstract. One day he heard an important announcement.
Drink fruit juice. Fruit juice means health. Health means sports. Sports mean money. Money means women. Women mean AIDS. AIDS means death. Stop drinking fruit juice.
Just then, Billy's daughter Allie walked in after her first day of school. Her dad asked her,
What did you learn at school today, Allie?
That others get pocket money.